Right now we have an assassin snail eating a bladder snail. If you can look closely, it has one arm that holds the snail, and then its mouth is like another protruding appendage that goes inside of the victim snail's shell. And this is how it assassinates its prey. These assassin snails prefer a much higher protein diet than pretty much any other snail, which is why they've developed this unique ability. They have an extremely keen sense of smell, which allows them to detect their prey, even when they're just freshly added or if they're at a reasonable distance. You can see he's going back in there. Gonna finish up the job. Got everything in manual focus here because I'm really close to the aquarium. See him getting all up in that bladder snail shell, often referred to as pond snails. However, keep in mind that there are a variety of snails that are in that category of pond snail. This one particularly is a bladder. Pretty quickly reproducing snail, lays clutches of eggs, and they become pests pretty easily. Many times they are accidentally put into an aquarium when people put in their plants. And although these guys don't particularly eat plants, they tend to be all over them, so people get assassin snails to take care of the problem that comes with the high population surge from these guys. And he's really working his way in there, getting the job done. By the time he's done, the shell is going to look somewhat translucent, and it's got a weird, like, yellowish brown hue to it when he's done. Once the assassin snail has found its prey, it's pretty unlikely that he's going to get away. If you can see right there, it's the translucent shell. It looks like the assassin snail's protruding appendage in which it eats. Right there in the shell of the bladder snail. And he's going to clean everything out of that bladder snail shell. There won't be a single piece of meat inside of that shell by the time he's done. So, this should be interesting. I've been trying to record this for a while now with a different camera, and I finally brought up my good camera with manual focus so that I can finally get a chance to see this in action. I haven't seen it done with the lights on. A lot of the time these guys will hunt during the night and bury themselves during the day, but it looks like this little fellow was particularly hungry. Just look at him go, inching his way ever closer to the back of the spiral formation. And if you're watching this, I need some good names for my assassin snails. My one assassin snail's name is Altair. If you're familiar with Assassin's Creed, you'll know that name. But I'd like to name the other snails, so if you want to leave a name suggestion, put it on in the comments. Should be fun to see what everyone comes up with. Making quick work of the bladder snail. It'll sustain him for a little bit before he goes and hunts again. I actually have to pick up bladder snails on a relatively regular basis now, because I have 6 assassin snails in this tank, which hopefully I will upgrade to a bigger tank to accommodate the hopeful population increase of the assassins, which I hope to breed and sell for a decent price. Probably like $2 once they're fully grown. They become quite efficient. Some people expect assassin snails to get rid of things super quick. It's not always the case. It can take several months before an assassin snail eradicates the entire population of pest snails. But sometimes it can be quick. It all really just depends on the particular snail. Sometimes it can take only a little bit of time and then you're just left with assassin snails. And although assassin snails prefer the super high protein diet that they get from assassinating these bladder snails and ram's horns, they are still opportunistic eaters and will eat a variety of sinking food that you can feed. They don't particularly care for algae or plants, so they're safe for planted aquariums. These guys also have a really cool spiral black and yellow pattern to them, so they're nice to look at and watch as they go about. Looks like he's almost done with his dinner. This case is particularly unusual because this is on top of the, or on the glass, or acrylic in this case, of the aquarium, instead of on the sand, which is where they normally attack. And this is pretty close to the top of the water. You can see the reflection over the top. So this guy traveled up the wall to assassinate this guy in particular. And assassin snails, as far as I know, are not cannibalistic, so they should not eat each other. It's been a little over 9 minutes now, and he's not quite done yet. He's taking his sweet time, getting every little piece of protein he can get. He's a very efficient killer. But these guys can out-assassinate the snail's breeding habits. So, although these bladder snails breed at an incredibly fast rate, the assassin snails here can kill them faster than they can breed. So like I said, I have to go and pick up more every so often. And with 6 of them in the tank, it's every so often is getting more often than usual. They so far have only preyed on the bladder snails and maybe one Malaysian trumpet snail. I have not yet seen the empty husk of a shell of a ram's horn. Although there was one ram's horn who was playing a dangerous game riding on top of the shell of one of my assassin snails for the past 7 minutes or so. Yeah, it's about the one spot where the assassin cannot get his prey as if it's on top of him. It just doesn't bend that way. Just wriggling around. When he's done, he'll just drop the shell and it'll fall to the bottom. And I collect them. And if you ever need to add calcium to your tank, you can save the shells of the victims, crush them up, and put them in your filter, because a snail shell is high in calcium, which is good for other snails, as well as many invertebrates, like shrimp. Helps them get the required intake and nutrition to molt and grow. Another snail's trying to join the party. Run. You don't know what you've gotten yourself into. You know not the dangers of which you are about to be a victim of. Interesting if he takes on two at once. Be a double kill. Kill. There is his protruding appendage. He might be just about done with this bladder snail. And he'll eventually move on to the next one. Sorry for the shaky camera. I'm just getting a little tired from holding the camera in this position. Looks like he's almost done. Shouldn't be much left to the victim snail now. You can see how the victim snail shell has become translucent and like a yellowish brown hue to it. Okay, we have reached the 17-minute mark. You can see he's working his appendage around in the shell, still getting every last morsel he can. Okay, so we've approached the 20-minute mark. I'm going to stop the film here, because you get the basic idea. Well, thanks for watching, guys.